Tonight, growing outrage around the world over the Iran nuclear framework. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insisting that this deal will threaten the very survival of Israel.
The cabinet is united in strongly opposing the proposed deal. This deal would pose a grave danger to the region and to the world, and would threaten the very survival of the state of Israel. Such a deal does not lock Iran's path to the bomb. Such a deal paves Iran's path to the bomb. And it might very well spark a nuclear arms race throughout the Middle East, and it would greatly increase the risks of terrible war. Now, some say that the only alternative to this bad deal is war. That's not true. There's a third alternative: standing firm, increasing the pressure on Iran until a good deal is achieved. And finally, let me say one more thing. Iran is a regime that openly calls for Israel's destruction and openly and actively works towards that end. Just 2 days ago, in the midst of the negotiations in Lausanne, the commander of the besieged security forces in Iran said this: the destruction of Israel is non-negotiable. Well, I want to make clear to all, the survival of Israel is non-negotiable.
Hello everyone, I'm Andrea Tantaros in for Greta Van Susteren. Well, now that Obama has its nuclear deal framework in place, they're working overtime to try and sell it to the skeptics at the White House, and that includes many members of Congress. Representative Robert Pittenger joins me now. Congressman, tell us, what is Congress going to do? Because the president didn't consult Congress a lot on this one, if at all, and a lot of members are up in arms, and it's not just Republicans, as I understand, it's Democrats as well.
There are serious concerns with this framework. We want to have oversight of whatever agreement is written. We believe that what has been stated by the Iranians back in their own country, the foreign minister Zarif says already that all the sanctions will be removed, that all their nuclear sites will be open, that they will have the capacity to develop their heavy water site, that they will have the ability to continue with research and development, that they can continue in enriching uranium, even selling uranium on the open market. They can develop long-range ballistic missiles. These are serious concerns. While the IAEA has very limited access, they can't go anywhere at any time. They don't have unfettered access. They never have. I've met with the leadership of the IAEA in Vienna. They've always been restricted to going to just the agreed nuclear sites. They can't go anywhere else in the country. So yes, we have serious concerns over this structure.
So what are you going to do about it, Congressman? Because John Boehner and Lindsey Graham and others have said, look, we're going to try and pass legislation that gives us a say in this matter. And Lindsey Graham insists that they have a veto-proof majority to actually override a presidential veto. And President Obama has said he will veto any action that you try and take.
Well, I think the president's made his statement, and we will make our statement. We are an equal branch of government. I appreciate the fact that the Speaker of the House has been in the Middle East all week. He understands as they understand. Our Middle East allies understand the threat of Iran with nuclear capacities and long-range ballistic missiles. So we will make every effort to try to challenge this agreement. We believe it's not only harmful, but it's an existential threat to the United States of America.
Well, you know, the president spent a lot of time talking with negotiators and has said that the UN will have their say. I don't understand why Congress can't have its say. And so I'm trying to find out, do you think that the votes are there to try and allow Congress to have its say in legislation that would get them involved to approve or reject a deal? Do you think the votes are there?
I think they should be. I think there are serious concerns across party lines from the members that I've talked with. And yes, the president is trying to circumvent the Congress once again by going to the United Nations first and putting pressure back on our Congress. This is a matter of the security of the United States of America, and the people's representatives should have a voice in what is done.
All right, so maybe you can tell me, Congressman, because I've been trying to figure this out. I've been reading all the reports. I know this is just a framework. What did the U.S. get out of this deal?
I think we gave one concession after another. You know, the paradigm changed. We started saying in the beginning that Iran would be allowed no nuclear capacities. And then over time, over months, we enabled them to enjoy greater agreements, greater concessions. They have won at the table. You know, Ronald Reagan understood diplomacy. He got up from Reykjavik and he walked away from Mikhail Gorbachev. At such time that Gorbachev was demanding that Ronald Reagan come down on missile defense. Ronald Reagan said no, and he left the table. Our team has just been too eager. I don't know what our representatives believe. Do they think that Iran will be a different country tomorrow than it was yesterday?
Yeah.
This is a country that every November 4th, they celebrate Death to America Day.
Yeah, that's right.
They
Right.
call it the idolization of Israel. Are they going to renounce terrorism?
Yeah,
now?
I know, Congressman.
Because
I
they
don't
want
see
to be
that
trustworthy?
changing anytime soon. You're absolutely right. Well,
Yeah.
we applaud your efforts to try and get Congress's say, and we'll be, of course, following that when you get back after Easter recess. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew. Have a
And
wonderful
tonight,
Easter.
you too. The big question, could the Obama administration have gotten a better deal? The Wall Street Journal is reporting that the U.S. made steady concessions throughout the nuclear talks. The Wall Street Journal's Carol Lee joins us now. Okay, Carol, so that is the question. Could we have gotten a better deal?
Well, if you take a step back and you look, there was a key moment that happened when negotiators in the U.S. and Iran sat down to talk really in earnest. It was their first meeting, and the U.S. went into that meeting with the hope of dismantling most of Iran's nuclear infrastructure. And when you talk to U.S. officials, they say it became very clear quickly that that was not a saleable option, that instead the parameters of a deal were then set, the deal that was announced this week were set in that key meeting, where they decided instead to focus on putting together a set of complex limitations on Iran's nuclear program that would keep it at what's being called a one-year breakout period, meaning that it would take a year for Iran to break out and quickly obtain nuclear capacity. And so and currently the estimates are that that's around 3 to 4 months. So that really set the tone for negotiations, and then things went from there over 19 months. And, you know, Iran did make some concessions on its own in terms of the inspections that are set up in the framework deal, and they're limiting and reducing their number of centrifuges and limiting their various nuclear materials.
But Carol, I'm looking at what the president said in 2012,
Mhm.
and none of the things that he said were must-haves really got into this deal. I mean, not one of the country's 19,000 centrifuges will be dismantled. None of the nuclear facilities will be closed. I mean, I could go on and on and on. So what happened? And I'm going to ask you the same question. Everybody's asking, Carol, what did we get out of this?
Well, from the White House's perspective, you got a deal that basically puts Iran in a longer time period from being able to break out and acquire a nuclear weapon. And you got stronger inspections. The U.S. sees that as, you know, either having no eyes or less eyes on their program to having some set of inspections that is going to give them a window into their nuclear activity. And the argument that the president's making, and this is where, you know, he is going to have a challenge with Congress, with our allies in the region, is that there's a lot of folks who feel that he should have stuck with that principle of mainly dismantling most of Iran's nuclear infrastructure. But, you know, the U.S. officials will tell you that that just wasn't going to get Iran to yes.
Well, it seemed like he really wanted a deal, because he should have left the table, I think, a long time ago. There's no talk about hostages. There's no talk about all the must-haves that he originally ticked off. But we'll be following this, as this is just a framework. Carol, thank you.
Thank you.
And today, Iran's president insisting his nation will abide by the agreement. But is anyone besides the Obama administration really buying that?
It is a good deal.
The cabinet is united in strongly opposing the proposed deal.
The Americans have given the Iranians everything they wanted.
Iran's nuclear program is and will remain exclusively peaceful.
Everything's up for grabs again.
This deal would pose a grave danger to the region and to the world. and would threaten the very survival of the State of Israel.
This framework would cut off every pathway that Iran could take to develop a nuclear weapon.
And the man with the mustache you saw in that montage is here with me now. Former UN Ambassador John Bolton joins us. Ambassador Bolton, I've been asking what we got out of this deal. I know you think we didn't get very much, but isn't the million-dollar question, can Iran still build a bomb under this deal?
Of course they can, and really it leaves in nearly Iran's total discretion what the timing for that decision will be. Let's be clear, Iran hasn't been in a rush to build one bomb during the entire length of its program, which is now some 3 decades. They have been carefully building a broad and deep nuclear infrastructure. The concessions that they've made under this framework, I don't call it a deal because they haven't signed anything that commits them to anything, are trivial and easily reversible. And most importantly of all, everything that people talk about rests on the assumption that we have 100% accurate knowledge of everything that Iran is doing in the nuclear field. And I think that's fundamentally false.
Ambassador Bolton, historically in Iran, they do not believe in doing deals or adhering to deals that are done with infidels. So isn't this deal just a big bunch of nothing?
Well, I don't trust their theologians. I don't trust their nuclear scientists either. Just as one example, the Fordo facility, the deeply buried facility, was not disclosed to the IAEA. We found out about it through our intelligence and leaks from inside Iran. And it really raises the question, yet again, how many other undisclosed facilities are there? Remember now that the nuclear program is controlled by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps. This is central to their concept of dominance inside Iran and dominance in the region. The nuclear program is not controlled by the Iranian Foreign Ministry. I think they know really very little about what's going on in the program. And I am convinced that if and when a real deal is signed by the end of June, the Iranians will violate it before the ink is dried, just as they violated every other commitment they've made on the nuclear program.
Ambassador Bolton, on Special Report just now, George Will was talking about how President Obama does want to fundamentally, seemingly change the Middle East, and this would do that. But Charles Krauthammer came back and he said, well, if we lift these sanctions, that will lift Iran's economy and boost it in such a way that it will help fuel their terrorism program and really bolster them in a way that we can't really stop. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's right, although I don't believe that the economic sanctions on the nuclear side really have had a fundamental effect on Iran's economy. I think the economy is in bad shape because of 35 years of consistent mismanagement, because of the recent collapse of international oil prices. I think the Iranians wanted relief from the sanctions because it's a sensible thing to want, but they haven't done anything to indicate that once relieved, their behavior on the nuclear front or on the terrorist front is going to change.
And Ambassador, I don't have a lot of time, but I do want to ask you, are we seeing the beginning of a Middle East arms race? I mean, we know that the Saudis have hinted at a nuclear program. The Israelis are mum on theirs. But what do you think?
It has already started, and I think the president's negotiating strategy these past 2 years has accelerated what would have been an arms race once Iran tested a nuclear device. It's now pushed it forward because Saudis, Egyptians, Turks, and others see that the president's not going to do what is necessary to stop Iran. They're going to move now before it's too late from their point of view.
All right, Ambassador, thank you.
Thank you.
Now.